Welcome to the Intelligence Amplifiers, podcast that celebrates the people who make the intelligence a collective superpower. In every episode, we uncover the stories of learning and development leaders who amplify knowledge, break down silos, and empower teams to thrive. These are the enablers of insight, the ones turning expertise into action and shaping the future of work by ensuring that the right knowledge reaches the right people at the right time. So, if you're ready to explore how the intelligence is amplified and shared across organizations, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Welcome to the latest episode of Intelligence Amplifiers. Today we're speaking with Rob Resnick. Rob, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Marco. Good to see you today.
Great to have you. And today, right now, you run learning and development at News Corp, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, and we'll get to that. I wanted to start with your earlier career. As far as I remember, you started out wanting to do journalism.
Yeah, if I go way back into when I was in high school, I love journalism. I was on the high school newspaper. I was editor-in-chief my senior year and really enjoyed being part of that whole environment. It's kind of a mini newsroom back then, and thought I might want to continue on. And when I went to college, I joined the student newspaper there as well and spent some time in that environment. I enjoyed it, but I felt something missing, I guess, career-wise. I thought that there was an opportunity to be a little bit more helpful, I guess, in terms of people's lives. And that's what got me into teaching. My grandfather started out wanting to be a teacher. He wound up going in a different direction because of the Depression. My grandmother was a teacher and then had to stop because she got married. And back in those days, they wouldn't let you continue teaching after you got married. I had an uncle who was a teacher. It's a little bit of my blood in that sense. And so it felt sort of natural. And I was able to sort of shift my attention towards a career in education. I got certified as a high school teacher back when I was in college. Thought I might go down that road, and then when I graduated, thought maybe not. That's not quite what's right for me, and that's what eventually got me on the road of corporate learning and development.
Got it. So a family of teachers, interest in journalism, and how did you get into your first teaching job? If I remember correctly, it had to do with computer
That's
training.
right. Yeah, so the first time I was actually in a learning and development role, I worked for Berkeley College, which is a college in the New York area, does a lot of business related teaching. And they were looking to have someone come on and be part of their corporate training division. They had a small corporate training division. They'd go out to different area companies. And at the time, there were quite a few employees who were, for the first time, learning how to use desktop software like Microsoft Word and Excel and PowerPoint. That was early on at those stages in the early 1990s, and they wanted someone to go and teach that. And I was starting to use some of that in my life and in my very first job out of college, which was in the publishing industry. And I said, this is kind of a nice way to get into teaching without being in a high school classroom. So I did that for a number of years. As my first L&D role. And then I started when I was at Berkeley to get involved in teaching a few other things besides the desktop applications. And that's what eventually led to a broader L&D role for me.
Got it. So you went from teaching computer software and computer systems to figuring out something else. And what was that? Was that like a manager training, or how did you?
Yeah, so a lot of it was more in the management and sort of soft skills training. So for a while I was doing both. The next place I started doing that kind of L&D work is at Linens and Things, which you may remember as a retailer. And I was there for a number of years. And there too, I started out more of the technical training, various bits of software that they used. But then I shifted and started to do more management development, a lot of new hire training, a lot of other types of team-based learning experiences, and connecting a little more with the HR team with some of the work that they were doing around larger career development initiatives.
What was the biggest surprise, I guess, going from like teaching computer systems, which is like really this like hard stuff, right? Like how to do X with computers, to teaching people how to lead and manage. Like, what did you notice there? What was the surprising factor in that shift?
I think with the management training, there is more of a focus on sort of the interpersonal connections that you really need to be aware of when you are working with other people. And so a lot around communication, managing conflict, um, managing work in a very thoughtful way, as opposed to the software training was a little bit more um, just learning procedurally what you need to do and following various steps and practicing. It's a little different when you get into conversations around how to become a stronger leader.
Got it. Yeah. I mean, most of my early career was teaching software, right, to engineers. So I could kind of could relate to that, and I enjoyed that. And so I can kind of see how the two can be similar but quite different as well, because the nature of the subject matter is quite different. Uh, got it. So then so you went from Linen and things to believe McGraw-Hill, right? And then it was more of a functional training focus. How was that?
That's right. Yeah, it was a great opportunity to sort of build an entire curriculum from the start. They did not have a learning and development person for the division that I supported, which was called Platts. They did journalism for the energy industry primarily, oil, gas, coal, things like that. So those journalists and those who supported the journalists needed to learn about those businesses. So we had a whole curriculum that was grounded in those different commodities, understand how the oil industry, gas industry works, and then also specific skills around the functional areas like the journalists understand how would they really be reporting on stories, how would they write the stories effectively. Some of that was back to some computer training because they were using a software platform, so we needed to do training around that. Media law, editing skills. So there was a whole editorial curriculum I was involved in creating. And then we started working on a sales curriculum for the sales team. And then I partnered with folks that were at the larger McGraw-Hill corporate level that led some of the leadership development. And so I would assist with some of those programs in terms of both design and facilitation. I facilitated new hire orientation for the entire McGraw-Hill company. They bring everyone together from the different divisions and all attend together. So it was a wonderful organization. Again, one of these great publishers, and that was where I started to have the two roads merge a little bit to my love of publishing and journalism and my love of education and teaching.
Got it. And you got to see a lot of other different aspects of learning, right? From onboarding to leadership development to sales training, and all of that kind of combined in one. And as you said, kind of coming back to your original love, which was journalism,
Yeah.
and experiencing that. And as you sort of noticed all these different, I guess, areas of learning and development, what called you the most? Like, was there anything specific that you enjoyed more than other aspect of that work?
I was thinking about that earlier and kind of the parallel between putting together a newspaper and the work that's involved in first figuring out what you want to cover, then kind of breaking that into sections, and then having the individual stories in each of the sections, and the editing work and all of that that goes in, and then the one area that's different is that in the newspaper side of things, when you publish, you kind of step back at that point unless you were to go and actually read your story to someone, which usually doesn't happen. But the nice additional piece you get with teaching is that after you do that preliminary work of putting together your stories and putting together your package, which is basically a workshop or a course that you're delivering, then you get to go and actually get in front of the people and present that material and interact with people around it. I really love both of those elements, the design and the pre-production part, and then the delivery of it.
Got it. Got it. Seeing that whole cycle end to end. Great. So McGraw-Hill was basically where you got back to your roots of journalism, and News Corp then sorry, New York Times was the next one, right?
Actually, Macmillan. That was a book publisher, but still publishing and a great business there to get a little closer to, because I hadn't worked for a trade publisher before, and that was kind of a little different experience, but a lot of the same kinds of work that I was doing over there. And then from there, I went to the New York Times. So really, and of course, an iconic newspaper there, and now finally over at News Corp, which is the publisher of the Wall Street Journal, New York Post, and many other newspapers internationally.
Got it. And we'll get to that. And if I can remember correctly, at Macmillan, you also expanded your scope, which also included a little bit of a talent management, right? So you got into performance and things that are not necessarily L&D, but are adjacent to that. What was that experience like?
That's right. We had a little bit smaller team. And so I found myself involved with other areas of HR that went a little bit beyond the traditional learning and development sphere that I was involved in past roles. So I was able to get involved in the performance management process, helped redesign that a little bit. I had a great partner there who was the HR business partner, kind of the HR business partner, and we worked on a lot of initiatives around career development. Got into compensation planning a little bit because that became an issue for certain roles. Was the compensation at the level it needed to be? Working with the HR systems team a lot to expand the availability of information through the different HR systems and tools there. So it really felt like a more comprehensive HR role beyond just learning and development, but still doing all the same L&D things, developing programs that are both technical and leadership side.
Yeah, and I'm asking because usually learning and development there's always this question of like, how do we measure our impact, right? Then there's always the question of like, where does it fit in, like, what's the purpose of it? And it's usually about expanding the effectiveness of the team, the talent, and so on. So that's why I was kind of curious how much talent and performance management had to do with L&D, and how much L&D was the leading sort of indicator, like using learning and development as a way to improve the effectiveness of the talent.
That's right. And one thing I forgot to mention, I was involved in the engagement survey there. And so that's a key metric that you look to in order to understand what impact are your various HR initiatives, including learning and development, having on the employee population. So that is where you're able to get a read on the kind of impact that you're able to have.
I'm curious, and so you mentioned various initiatives, including L&D. So how was L&D compare? How did it rank compared to other initiatives? Like how effective was were learning and development programs, given all the other things you had in your toolbox to kind of improve the effectiveness and engagement?
Are you talking specifically at Macmillan or just broadly at any place? I think learning and development has a special kind of impact on a person's career if it's done successfully, is it really helps people expand their capabilities, which ideally leads to an expanded set of career opportunities for them. So that's, I think, why I love that as sort of the cornerstone of my own career, building everything pretty much around that. And the other areas I think are related and have a part to play. Uh, but for me, it always gets back to what can people learn how to do, and part of that learning is your exposure to other people. So some of the programs I've had the most enjoyment around and been most proud of have been things like mentoring and coaching programs where people are exposed to other colleagues or sometimes external individuals who can really talk with them about what they're looking to do in their career and help them advance even more dramatically sometimes than a workshop, let's say, or certainly an online course that you might design. They really get to talk about what they'd like to do and how to get there. I've been a part of both the kind of traditional mentoring where you have typically an experienced person paired up with someone who's a little less experienced, or sometimes they're even equally tenured, but one has experience in an area that the other person is interested in learning about. And then there's a peer-to-peer, often group-based mentoring or coaching circles that we've put together that can be very powerful too. And people really enjoy meeting with their colleagues several at a time and talking through various challenges and how to overcome them.
Got it. And we'll get to that. I believe that was something that you're doing now at News Corp. Um, but I wanted to kind of get back to, so after Macmillan, you went to New York Times, right? And I believe it was during the time where the HR team was growing quite rapidly. You experienced like doubling of that team.
That's
Um,
right. Right.
how's that managing growth of an HR team and learning and development um, at an iconic company?
I think you have to be careful with it. I've seen that at other companies too, where because of, I guess, some initial analysis that shows that the business is growing, or that there are certain needs that are not being met, they they increase the size of the staff, they create new roles, and maybe in the short term that can help alleviate some of the burden, the workload on members of the team. But if you don't have continuous growth of the organization in terms of numbers, in terms of opportunity, it becomes harder, I think, to justify those that size of a team. And I've seen that team then have to get shrunk back down. So I think you have to be careful with your organizational design. This is becoming a hot topic now because of AI, as you know, where they are foreseeing the possibility of a number of roles being eliminated because they can be done by AI agents and bots. You don't need a human being there. So we have to be careful of how you build up teams, how you contract them, and what do you do with that talent that doesn't have a place anymore in an obvious role? Can you retrain them? Can you redeploy them in an organization as opposed to just having to cut the staff down?
Yeah, I can see that how it can be a double-edged sword, right? On one hand, it's exciting and the team is growing. On the other hand, as the team is growing, you have to justify its existence and put way more pressure and yeah, on measuring everything and proving everything and so on. And in New York Times, I know you worked a lot with managers at all the levels, from new managers to mid level to executives. What was the most fun? Like which kind of like level, or I guess stage of manager training, or did you enjoy the most?
I tend to enjoy that sort of middle level manager who has been in the role just a little bit of time and still has a lot that they are interested in learning. And you put them together with some of their peers from across different departments. They seem to really appreciate that exposure to other managers going through similar things, but dealing with it in a different sort of set of circumstances, so that it kind of opens their mind to some other ideas, some other ways of leading their teams. So we put together a program there. It did have different levels. So you had kind of a newer manager group, and then we'd have an experienced manager group. And we were starting to add different components as time went on. And one of those things was a peer-to-peer coaching element, where we invited folks to come and they would get together on a monthly basis with their fellow managers over a span of 6 months or so. I think we tried it a couple different ways, and really get the value out of talking through various real life situations that they've had to manage.
Got it. So I just wanted to kind of focus on that. So basically, you had this peer group. It was for mid-level managers. They would get together and they would pick real scenarios, like things that they're dealing with, and then they would discuss them. And everyone was pretty much at the same level. So it was kind of like learning from each other's experience sharing.
That's
Correct?
right.
Got it. And was that like an open group, like were people allowed to come in and out, or was it like more of a closed circle for like a period of 6 months or so?
Yeah, we try to keep the cohorts together for a period of time so we get to know each other and get more comfortable sharing with one another. And so we have a similar kind of element to our leadership development program over here at News Corp that we've put into place. And it seems to be working well. People seem to be getting value out of being able to apply what they learn in a typical workshop where, let's say, we talk about delegation as a topic. You then can talk with your colleagues about how did you actually delegate that work, and what kind of issues might have come up, what worked really well, what didn't work so well, how could you maybe try it differently next time. No, I think we've come up with names like Leadership Connections or at News Corp we've kept it pretty simple so far. We just call it the Manager Development Program. So sometimes just being straight and clear about what it is. I guess I'm more boring when it comes to that. Some people like the catchier names and but sometimes I feel that if you go too cute, it kind of detracts from what people are actually going to get out of it.
Got it. And so you went from New York Times to News Corp where you at today. And what's that like? Are they similar in like organizationally similar culture or any surprises there culturally?
There's some similarities, because it is a similar business. News Corp has some elements that have gone outside of journalism. So there's a book publishing element with HarperCollins, which brings me back to my days at Macmillan, for example. There are some real estate units that really focus on a very different kind of business than traditional journalism, but a lot of it is still the newsrooms and journalism. So that part is very similar, of course, to the New York Times. It's a little more global than the Times. The Times had some international presence, but with News Corp, as you're probably aware, a huge presence in Australia because kind of how it all started down in Australia. Huge presence in the UK with a number of major newspapers there, and so it really feels truly global. It does have these different business units, and I have colleagues that do learning and development at those units that I really need to collaborate with. So my first year here, a lot of it has been spent on building those relationships as well as building programs.
Got it. And speaking of programs, I know your focus is leadership development there, and one of the key things is new manager training, I believe. Uh,
That's
right.
right. So we're working on that too, building in not just sort of the soft skills that we're talking about, but just the basics of what do you need to do to get up to speed with the various policies and procedures. So we have an element of that that's being being introduced soon.
Got it. And coming back to one of your favorite sort of programs, mentorship and coaching, I believe you now get to also expand the coaching program, and that's in place. How's that going? What's the shape of that?
I think we're on the verge of a really big push to get coaching in the hands of a lot more of our leaders across the organization. So I'm excited to see that. Traditionally, with coaching, what you see are it's only reserved for the very top level executives because of the cost. Very expensive to put someone through, let's say, 6 months of one-on-one coaching with one of these elite external coaches. So there are new options that have come to pass in recent years. There are various vendors that provide sort of a unlimited on-demand coaching experience for a period of time, and they're able to scalable, so you can purchase a number of licenses for a lower per person cost, and that allows you to offer coaching to a much larger pool of leaders.
Got it. So yes, you're absolutely right. Typically, coaching is just kind of like for the upper echelon, the C-suite, right? And you're looking to expand it now to, I guess, middle managers and leaders across the organization. And it sounds like it's leaning on to these providers, the external providers, primarily to expand that. Is that correct?
That's right. They're able to get us what we would be looking for at a lower per person cost.
Got it. Got it. And so expanding coaching. So that's one of the initiatives. We also mentioned earlier peer-to-peer programs, and that's manager training. So that's another initiative that you have going on as well. And what do you see is the future of that? Like what's exciting about that, or where's that going?
I think it's been embedded nicely into the mid-level manager development programs that we offer. So I think we want to continue running that. So any new managers who step into the role, either from outside hires or from internal promotion, will get a chance to go through that early on in that part of their career. And I would like to expand our offerings for those who complete that mid-level manager development, go into sort of a higher tier experienced manager programming, looking at a couple of options for what we might do there. Some of it involves simulations, which I think have a little bit of gamification built into those leadership scenarios that they would work through. Um, Coaching, of course, could be part of that as well, and maybe just take them through some more elaborate kinds of scenarios that we work on internally so that they have a chance to really see how they can build their teams.
Got it. Got it. And so we talked a lot about various programs from like, onboarding to cohort-based learning to peer learning to coaching, mentorship, and so on. We haven't touched all of this has been like sort of like person to person, very real time. We haven't touched online learning much. What's the presence of online? How much do you lean on the self-paced learning in your programs?
I think it's a good supplement. In the time that I've been doing this, which is a few years now, it seems like there was a greater hope for it, that it might be something that people would really lean into and take great advantage of. And I think there are pockets of an organization where that is still true. Some folks in technical roles where they need to learn a particular software program, another technical skill. A lot of times it is technology based. They get a lot of value out of just being able to go into that platform and learn on their own using one of the self-paced online programs. There are a bunch of vendors out there that provide that, and I've worked with several of those, and they do a pretty good job. I just think that it has not taken off quite in the way maybe people thought, where it would replace the facilitator-led experiences, and that includes also some of these peer-to-peer experiences. There's really great value still in the human element. I think we're starting to see that still as AI is being introduced, and people are sort of wrestling with how is that affecting learning, and are you able to shift to even more of a self-paced experience using AI tools? To a certain extent, yes, there are some great things you can learn using AI tools, but there are still so many things you get from that personal connection with a facilitator and with your colleagues.
Got it. So I think the keyword here was it's supplemental, right? Like, so you can use it in addition to, but primary is this human connection and being learning from peers, learning from facilitators, learning in real life, basically. So that's interesting. So speaking of all this, what are some of the biggest challenges you're facing now when it comes to learning and development?
I think time is always a big one where people feel this real crunch of their working hours. And coming out of COVID, it's interesting how, in some ways, people had a little more freedom with their time, but in a strange way, it's also, I think, created more time pressures on people, where I'm seeing a little more resistance than I did pre-COVID for people carving out a little bit of time to focus on learning and development. So that's a big challenge. Budgets tend to always be a challenge, because when the company is looking to cut back, then one of the things they'll tend to go for is learning and development. So you have to figure out how do you do things on an extremely low budget sometimes, and that eliminates some of the more intriguing options that have a little bit of a price tag. Um, and I think systems are things that I was hoping might have been more integrated at this point, so people can really have a clear picture of their career. Um, that was one of the hopes too, with some of these human capital management systems, where everything would be at your fingertips. You'd be able to go in, pop up a screen, and it shows you everything that's going on in terms of your learning and development, your compensation, your next step in your career, your performance, and then for your manager has a great visibility to all of that too. I think there are some tools that have done a fairly good job with it, but it seems, at least in the places I've worked, the configurations are not giving users the kind of quality experience and exciting experience that they're looking for. So they shy away from it. They don't dig into their skill set and the next step in their career and conversations with their boss about their performance and so on. They see a lot of that as tedious, as not particularly interesting. And I would love to see a tool come on out that really captures people's energy They can't wait to go in there and they really start engaging with learning and with their career development.
Got it. Got it. So basically, the tools are not not meeting people what they're at in terms of like getting them excited, getting them engaged, getting them to really dig in and it kind of like want to learn more through that. So,
That's right.
right, that's one of the challenges. If I remember correctly, we also talked about talent marketplace and sort of that problem of like what happens once I learn something, right? Like what are my opportunities? So it's kind of like going back to learning is just unlocking a certain skill or certain potential, but then what do I do with that, right? And like in a large organization like News Corp, like there's probably different opportunities. So how do you connect learning to those opportunities and kind of unlock that further?
Yeah, and that's a great example of where the technology could be playing a bigger role than it is right now. There are tools that have been designed to do that, but again, I'm not seeing them implemented fully, and so that's the missing link. People can go and work on their development, and even with the development, sometimes what happens is they work on that in several different places. So you have one system that's tracking their participation in the facilitated in-person workshops, and then a different tool that's tracking what they do with their online learning, and a different tool that contains their career development plan that they worked on with their manager. And then they do some outside workshop where they go to a conference that's not tracked at all. And so if you could at least bring that together, it would be great. So that's one piece. But then even if you bring all of that together, there's no connection between those learning experiences and what is possible for you to do in the next step of your career, either job exploration, rotations, shadowing, things that you could do just to understand what another job is, or actual movement to another job. Sure, you can go on to the typical external facing career site and type in, something as a search. Oh, is there a job available there? But what people I think would really be hungry for is someone coming to them, some alert maybe popping up, say, hey, do you know this job is open now and you are qualified for it? And again, there are tools that have been designed to do that. I'm just not seeing them implemented yet. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. So sounds like there's a lot of potential there to do that better and to integrate those different systems to provide a more holistic picture of what's available
That's right.
to a
That's right.
person. What are you most excited about? Like in what's on the horizon? Like looking at what the industry is and what's possible, and for you personally, what are you exploring or excited about?
I've been reading some articles that talk about AI and the potential for real innovation and creatively designed solutions as a result of this dramatic shift and being able to remove some of the more uh, uh, manual tasks or time consuming tasks that HR faces, and that includes some of the L&D things around designing a course. For example, say, well, you don't have to spend as many hours designing a course because you can use AI to bring a lot of that content together, and that's probably true. And they say that ideally frees up professionals in L&D and HR roles to do more creative, more innovative things. I really hope that's true because I think there's a lot that can be done, and we were just talking about a couple of those kinds of things in connecting people's experiences around learning and around their day-to-day work with the future career opportunities for them. And so it could open up some amazing doors for individuals if they have the right exposure. And that's where L&D people come in, is providing that exposure to people in different jobs, especially jobs that are going to be changing dramatically because of AI. So I think they need someone there to help guide them to that next thing. And I would be very excited to be part of that, hopefully very positive transition to a new world of work that we're stepping into.
Got it. So I'm hearing like AI almost kind of helping with some of the mundane work of like maybe putting together content for learning, and that in turn freeing L&D people to almost become more counselors, more like consultative, and more like guides where they can help people sort of navigate what's possible for them and provide that exposure to different things.
That's right.
That's what I'm hearing. Yeah, that's that's exciting, and I love that vision. Cool. So, one final question. So, you had this career, you wanted to be a journalist, you come from a family of teachers, you fell into computer software training as initial sort of like way into learning and development, and kind of like saw sales, and then new manager training at the linen company, and then got all the way to now working at one of the largest journalism companies and doing learning and development. So almost like a full circle. So looking back at such a colorful career, what would be a piece of advice you would give to your younger self starting out?
Yeah, I think just to have faith in your path, and that things can work their way through. Because I'm proof of that. I feel very lucky to have had some of the opportunities along the way. The timing was just right to move from one step to the next in the career. Um, there's certain things I've tried to hold as sort of constants in terms of my values and in terms of my objectives of what I'm trying to accomplish in this work. And there's ups and downs. There's things that you start to get a little discouraged, but then something happens to get you back on track. So I would hopefully just say to my earlier self, you stick it out, buckle down and do the work, and things have a way of working out. I think that's a big part of it.
Awesome. Well, Rob, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your story, and great to have you on this episode.
This is great. I really enjoyed it. Thanks, Marco.
That's it for this episode of the Intelligence Amplifiers. If you like what you've heard, be sure to subscribe or follow so you don't miss out on the future episodes. And if you're interested in being a guest or have a question, check out the episode description for how to reach us. Also, don't forget to check out Plus Plus, the platform that makes collective intelligence at scale possible. Find out more at plusplus.co. Thank you for listening, and until next time, keep amplifying.